Okay, when we see it, you see it. And right off the top, we begin with this breaking news out of Capitol Hill. Turn a page and close a chapter. Republican Senator Mitch McConnell announcing he will not seek re-election next year. Think about it this way. McConnell is the longest-serving Senate party leader in U.S. history. And in recent days, he's been a no vote to some of President Donald Trump's cabinet picks and confirmation hearings. He started speaking on the Senate floor just minutes ago. Let's step in and listen.
I've never liked calling too much attention to today's date, February 20th. But I figured my birthday would be as good a day as any to share with our colleagues a decision I made last year. During my time in the Senate, I've only really answered to two constituencies: the Republican Conference and the people of Kentucky.
So a lot to think about here. Let's ask CBS News congressional correspondent Taurean Small about this breaking news. Taurean, McConnell isn't one to walk away from a fight. Any word on what brought him to this decision? He said he made it last year.
Yeah, well, I would imagine his health is probably a big part in his deciding factor here. He had quite a few health scares where he paused at press conferences. He's fallen quite a bit on this pretty hard floor on the Senate Capitol grounds. And then also recently he's been spotted being transported around in a wheelchair. He's one of the oldest members of Congress. And like you said, he's the longest serving party leader here. So he probably realized at the peak of his life, it's probably time for him to step down. But one thing politically that's been interesting to follow as he came up to this point, he's been known to break from not just President Trump, but also his party, and breaking on these controversial confirmations going forward. 3 times now he's voted against some of the more controversial figures that Trump has tried to push through and successfully push through. And this also comes as the Senate is geared and ready to vote in Kash Patel, a Trump loyalist, for the nation's top leader of the FBI. One that he hasn't telegraphed quite yet where he stands, but it's likely that he'll also break with the party on that one as well. But Mitch McConnell here in these closing remarks, and we're trying to listen in and see where exactly he goes with this, has so far not necessarily taken shots at President Trump, but considering that he's taken off the gloves so far this year, it's likely that he might make a mention to his administration.
Well, we also have to ask you about the money. Congress controls it, and that means a big budget bill. I want to play what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say about a Trump-backed budget bill. Let's listen to that, and then we'll talk about it.
It's really important. So the Senate obviously has its own approach, and the president has been very clear that his preference is to put everything in one bill.
Right.
And part of that is just simple legislative strategy. I think the president has learned a lot about how D.C. works. And I actually talked to the president about this yesterday, and he said to me, look, it's very rare that you can get 2 reconciliation bills done in one Congress, which is why he thinks we've got to do a lot with that one big, beautiful bill, that first reconciliation package that we're going to get through the House and the Senate. It's going well. It's early, right? This stuff takes time to put together. I think, if you had a record pace reconciliation bill, we would get this thing done in May or in June. I think we're on track to do that.
On track, May or June, Taurean. What would lawmakers on the Hill have to say about that?
I don't know. The timeline for that is a bit peculiar, considering that March 14th is the budget deadline in order to avert a government shutdown. Based off of what he said there, I'm assuming that he's meaning there will be another continuing resolution or stopgap that would get them past that deadline to that May or June deadline. But I'm not sure that more of the right flank in the House would be on board with that. Listen, the House Freedom Caucus makes up a significant portion, at least when it comes to numbers, to the House Republican Conference. So if, like Speaker Johnson has said before, if he can't get all 218 members on board with the plan, it's just moot at this point, which is why we're seeing clashes between chambers. Now, I talked to Senator Graham yesterday after Donald Trump came out and said that he's endorsing the House bill. I asked Leader Thune, I asked quite a few Republicans, where do they go from there? This also happened after their lunch meeting with Vice President Vance. They said that the Vice President didn't tell them to necessarily kill their bill. bill. They said that the president understands this could be an option if something happens to the House bill. So they're moving forward with theirs no matter what. They also didn't communicate confidence, or at least telegraph confidence in the House's ability to get theirs forward, knowing the fact that there are still members in the caucus or in the conference that could hold this up. So they're saying, listen, we will be a plan B, but there's no way we're abandoning our plan. We still think two bills are the way to go, much to the chagrin of the president.
Well, and we see, as we talk about this bill, whether it's one version or the other, or that big, beautiful bill, as Donald Trump has branded it, the deadlines, March, and then perhaps kicking the can down the road to May or June, which, like you say, really seems very ambitious there. For the person at home, what this really speaks to is money relative to the debt ceiling, money relative to tax cuts, and also funding President Donald Trump's very ambitious work in the deportation conversation in our nation. Are really those three the bread and butter conversations for the voter who's watching right now?
Absolutely, but also we got to consider, and this is something that we've been trying to get a readout on from Speaker Johnson and other Republicans, especially involved in these negotiations. Will this account for, or potential stopgap account for, the payouts that the president is offering to these federal workers, or has offered to federal workers, to effectively resign from their posts, especially as the president moves forward with these mass layoffs and scaling back of these departments? The question is, where does this money reside? And there are two schools of thoughts here. Senate Republicans believe that it should be somewhat balanced within itself, which is why they're saying we should probably look at two bills versus one. Republicans in the House, however, say that in order for this to happen, there's going to be X amount of cuts in the matter of $1.5 trillion, but they also want to push through in this same bill that massive expansion of tax cuts that we saw in 2017. That's about $4 trillion that they're looking for. This runs concurrently as DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, run by Eli Musk, although the White House said that he's not an official administrator, but a special assistant to the president, is looking at more cuts across the board. Where the money is at this point is still TBD, but it's something that Republicans seemingly are talking about amongst themselves. Democrats so far said they have not been a part of the conversation. Minority Leader Jeffries in the House said that we offered up something, and Republicans so far have rejected that.
Taurean Small, CBS News congressional reporter. Great to catch up with you today. We know you are watching all of those developments. Thank you so much.